Have you ever looked at the clock and felt that sinking feeling? Like you're just drowning in to-do lists and the day is slipping away? Well, you're in the right place. We're about to dive into the real science of getting things done, not by working harder, but by working a whole lot smarter. Let's get into it.
I mean, it's a feeling we all know, right? You're juggling everything, work, school, your personal life, and it just feels like you're constantly one step behind. There's so much pressure to get it all done. So why is it such an uphill battle?
You know the advice everyone gives you? Just focus more. You just need to try harder. It all comes back to this one idea, that productivity is just a test of your willpower. And if you're struggling, well, you must not want it bad enough.
But what if I told you that relying on willpower is the exact reason so many of us fail? The science is pretty clear on this one. That whole just try harder mentality, it's a trap. And it might be the very thing holding you back from actually getting stuff done.
So let's start right there. We're going to bust this willpower myth wide open, because understanding why it doesn't work is the absolute first step to finding a system that really truly does. So this brings us to a really cool concept from psychology called ego depletion. Here's the deal. Think of your willpower like a phone battery. You start the day at 100%, but every decision you make, every temptation you resist, it drains that battery. You can't just power through on sheer grit alone. Eventually, that resource runs dry. And that's when we start mindlessly scrolling or grabbing a snack instead of working.
Okay, so if we can't just white-knuckle our way through the day, what's the plan? We need a smarter strategy. And it all starts with getting brutally honest about the one thing we can never get more of: our time.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? We are all, and I mean all of us, notoriously bad at guessing how long things will take. We're eternal optimists. We constantly underestimate, which leads to jam-packed schedules and that awful feeling of always being behind. So step one in taking back control is to get real.
And this table is such a perfect reality check. We might look at a 20-page chapter and think, oh yeah, I can knock that out in an hour. But look at the data. If that's technical reading, it's actually closer to a 3 or even 4-hour job. And writing a 5-page paper with research, that could easily be an 8-hour day, maybe more. Using real data like this is a game changer. It helps us move from just wishful thinking to actual realistic planning. All right, so once you've got a much better sense of how long things actually take, the next question is, what do you do first? Because not all tasks are created equal, and for that, we need a really powerful way to set our priorities.
And this right here is the Eisenhower matrix. It is so simple, but it is incredibly effective. It basically helps you sort your entire to-do list by asking just 2 simple questions. Is this task urgent, and is it important?
So quadrant 1 is what I like to call the crisis zone. These are the things that are both urgent and important. Think about that paper that's due tomorrow or a project deadline that's today. These are the fires you have to put out. No questions asked, you do these now.
Now, quadrant 2, this is where the magic happens. These are the tasks that are super important for your long-term goals, but they aren't screaming for your attention right this second. Think studying for that big exam next week. This is the zone of high-quality, strategic work. The more time you can spend here, the fewer crises you'll have in quadrant 1. These are the things you need to schedule into your calendar.
Quadrant 3 is the sneaky one. These are tasks that feel really urgent, but when you think about it, they don't actually move you closer to your big goals. A lot of emails fall in here, maybe some chores. They're basically distractions disguised as emergencies. The goal here is to minimize these, or if you can, delegate them.
And finally, we have quadrant 4. Let's be honest, this is the procrastination station. Mindlessly scrolling through social media, binge-watching a show you're not even that into, these things are neither urgent nor important. You have to be ruthless here. The goal is to delete these activities and get that time back for what really matters. So you've estimated your time, you've prioritized your list, but now comes the part that trips a lot of us up, actually getting started. So let's talk about the science of how to beat procrastination.
Okay, this is a seriously powerful psychological hack. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. And what it means is that our brains absolutely hate open loops. It's like having too many tabs open in your browser. It creates a mental tension that can only be relieved by finishing the task. And that's why the hardest part of any task is just starting it.
So how do you use this to your advantage? It's ridiculously simple. Stop looking at the giant mountain of a project. Break it down into the tiniest, most laughably small steps imaginable. Don't think, I have to write a 10-page paper. Think,
I'm just going to open a new document and write one sentence. That's it. Once you take that tiny first step, the Zeigarnik effect kicks in, and that mental need to finish the loop will start pulling you forward.
And remember, it is not about how long you work, it's about how you work. When they study elite performers like world-class musicians, they find these people don't practice all day long. They work in super intense, focused 90-minute bursts, and then they take a real break. They're relying on smart, disciplined scheduling, not on some bottomless well of willpower.
All right, finally, let's talk about the long game. Productivity isn't a one-time fix. It's a mental game you have to keep playing. So, how do you build up and sustain the motivation to keep showing up? Well, the great news is that motivation isn't some magical force you either have or you don't. It's a skill. It's something you can actively build and strengthen with the right strategies. It's about knowing how to set yourself up for success day in and day out. Let's just pull out 3 really powerful ones. First, as we said, break your goals down. It makes them way less scary. Second, reward yourself. When you finish a tough task, give yourself a real break. You're creating a positive feedback loop in your brain that says, hey, doing hard stuff leads to good things. And third, get an accountability partner. It's amazing what happens when you just tell a friend what you plan to do. You are so much more likely to actually do it. So look, if you take away just one single thing from all this, let it be this. Stop trying to be more disciplined and start being more strategic. Productivity is not about having more willpower, it's about having smarter systems that work with your brain's natural tendencies, not against them. So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Think about that one big, scary project on your list, the one you keep putting off. What is the absolute tiniest, simplest first step you could take in the next 5 minutes? Seriously, don't just think about it. Go and do it right now, and let the science of productivity start working for you.